So, ladies and gentlemen, may I request that we all take our seats? And to the few of our colleagues making their way in, may I just request that we all take our seats. We are ready to begin with our program. We've been notified that 10 a.m. was the start time for the markets that are opening at exactly this moment to receive the news from the Dbsa. Thank you very, very much. So let me start off by warmly welcoming all of you, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and also to our online audience. May I also acknowledge the Honourable Deputy Minister of Finance who will be joining us in a short while, and say you are warmly welcome to this morning's presentation of results by the Dbsa, the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Now, today is not just a typical results presentation. We also want to use today's opportunity to remind everyone of the strategic importance of the Dbsa, not just in South Africa, but in the rest of the African subcontinent. We know that because of market headwinds, whether it's issues of tariffs or debts or difficulties in currency conversion, that Africa continues to suffer from what has been termed an infrastructure backlog. In fact, the numbers have swelled over time. But currently, using AFDB figures, I believe that there is an annual backlog of as much as $170 billion per annum in terms of building the necessary roads, rails, schools, hospitals, ports, and industrial infrastructure on the African continent. We also know economic figures tell us that for a country to truly transform itself from low income to middle income or even higher, it needs to spend anywhere between 15% to 25% of its annual budget on infrastructure. That is what is required. And we know that for a variety of market-related concerns, South Africa is way behind the curve, and so too are many African nations. So today, the Dbsa is here to say they are ready to be part of the solution. They have a pipeline of impactful industrial and social infrastructure projects that have been leveled out across the African continent. Those have been governed properly, and as a result, there is fiscal sustainability. They are forward-thinking and future-preparing for a new economy of low carbon emissions, digitalization, and where we're really investing in human capital and in women. And they have the right corporate governance systems to make sure that every tax, rand, or dollar is accounted for. And so today, as we talk about the role of the Dbsa, not just in South Africa or SADC, but also in how it links up to other markets across the East African community or COMESA, we're here to say the numbers back up the vision of building Africa's prosperity. And so we're going to be speaking holistically, strategically, visioning for Africa through the Dbsa. And so with those words, I want to say to you, thank you so much for your time and the warmest welcome. Before we get into the technicalities of today, just a few housekeeping notes. Also because this is a live presentation, so may I humbly request that all our phones are on silent so that we don't have any technical disturbances. The hotel has assured us that this is a safe venue, and in the unlikely event of any eventualities, please could we all just exit using the doors to my left, converge in the foyer, and then hotel management will guide us as to where to go and assemble for safety. We're going to be having a panel discussion, and we'd really like to use that as an opportunity for our colleagues and members in the media to pose as many questions as you possibly can during that allocated time. However, for those of you who've made appointments, your one-on-one media sessions have been noted, and Dbsa staff will guide you as to where you need to go. We have a QR code, which should be showing up right behind me, and if you can all use the cameras on your phone to download it, so that you can get all the integrated reports, including today's financials. Using this QR code, you'll be able to get the report completely, as well as other integrated reports that you can refer to. Again, We have a lot of our stakeholders who are watching online, so a warm welcome to you. And at the end of the results presentation, we'd like to invite you all for some lunch and networking. Without further ado, please may I introduce to you, for welcoming remarks, our very first speaker, who is the interim chair of the Dbsa, Martie Janse van Rensburg. Many of you will know her. She has experience in the corporate and private sector, having led the Caledon Tunnel Authority project. She is executive trained at Stanford, and she is a corporate governance specialist. She joins us today as the interim chair of the Dbsa. Martie Janse van Rensburg, over to you.
Oopsie. Thank you, Lerato, for the introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. On behalf of the Development Bank of Southern Africa, it's my great pleasure to extend a very welcome to our strategic partners and clients who continue to walk the journey with us. International development finance institutions, investors, and banks whose support enables us to scale our impact. Our colleagues from state-owned entities, government departments, regulators, and service providers, whose collaboration strengthens our mandate. My fellow board members, the DBSA's executive management, and our dedicated employees who make our vision a reality. The Minister of Finance, Deputy Minister of Finance, will join us a little bit later, but I have the pleasure to welcome him. Just a little bit more about Dr. David Masondo. He's a key figure in the Ministry of Finance. He brings extensive experience in economic policy and financial management. Dr. Masondo has been appointed as Deputy Minister of Finance since May 2019 and has held various positions in government, including serving as MEC and Director in the Local Government Department in Limpopo. He's also been a lecturer at Wits University and is passionate about education and community development. He will join us and grace us with his presence just a little bit later. It's a pleasure to reflect on another year of outstanding performance, I would say stellar performance. The bank has again delivered strong financial results while advancing the developmental mandate with tangible impact. This achievement is a testament to the DBSA's resilience, strategic focus, and the dedication of its leadership and employees. It demonstrates our unwavering commitment to driving sustainable growth, strengthening infrastructure development, and creating lasting value for South Africa and the broader continent. The DBSA is accelerating its growth and impact through a 10-year strategy, a decadal strategy from 2024 to 2033, which focuses on strengthening capacity, enhancing governance, introducing innovative products to unlock trade and investment. The growth is pursued responsibly and with a strong pipeline of bankable projects that ensure sustainability and long-term impact. Just on a side note, we do not get funded from taxpayers' money, so we need to make sure that we make the money to be able to deploy. The global geopolitical landscape will remain highly dynamic, with persistent rivalries, conflicts, and economic uncertainty shaping trade, investment, and development flows. These challenges demand a strategic and adaptive approach. The DBSA will continue to safeguard its operations, build resilience, and leverage opportunities as intra-African trade and regional partnerships used to de-risk projects and drive sustainable development across Southern Africa and the continent. To deliver on these ambitious goals of the decadal strategy, it's imperative that the DBSA attracts and retain the right talent. Our ability to innovate, execute, and expand our impact depends on highly skilled, motivated individuals who are aligned with the bank's developmental mission. We remain committed to responsibly and competitively propose a sound employee value proposition to ensure that we attract and retain critical expertise while upholding principles of fairness and sustainability. By investing in our people, we strengthen our capacity to meet current and future challenges and deliver a meaningful impact for Africa. Okay, right. Many people ask, why does the DBSA continue to perform the way it does? So hopefully today I will share with you some insight. The bank's institutional strength enables development progress by providing a robust framework for operations and decision-making. This drives resilience and effectiveness in the operating system. There are at least 8 factors that underpins our institutional strength. The DBSA has a long history of performance, stellar performance in the last number of years also, and is poised for growth. Since inception, 40+ years ago, the DBSA never received a qualified audit report, so we always had unqualified audit reports. The 1995 transition principles of the bank into a post-apartheid era entity ensured that the structure, function, and governance of the entity focus on technical considerations. The primary criteria for eligibility for board members is said to be integrity, independence, and proven expertise. Secondly, we've been able to sustain stability in leadership at executive and board levels over time. The focus on leadership development and succession planning on executive and non-executive level resulted in continuity. We thank our shareholder for the consistent support in this matter, and just to note that the majority of DBSA board members are reappointed after the 3-year terms has expired. So by highest percentage, you have 3 times 3 terms, so 9 years on the board. And that assists to maintain strategy, and it maintains to ensure that the bank executes with integrity. Thirdly, the bank has strong compliance frameworks, internal controls, and risk mitigation processes to ensure legal and regulatory compliance. Our robust risk management practices ensure effective risk identification, assessment, and mitigation strategies to proactively manage and monitor risk, to anticipate and prevent potential threats, and to ensure continuity of operations. We maintain a robust governance framework, effective leadership, a commitment to ethical practices, and a culture of accountability. Number 5, we have a strong balance sheet and a solid financial position. With appropriate financial management systems in place, sustainable revenue streams, prudent risk management, and responsible lending practices to ensure the long-term financial sustainability and viability. We have a sound value proposition that delivers a customer-centric, integrated, responsive, and adaptable service offering, which enables us to deliver on our mandate within our focus areas and activities. We have a strong, collaborative, positive relationships with our stakeholders, including clients, partners, and the community, and we build strategic partnerships in order to expand our ability to deliver development impact on a larger scale. We engage in open and transparent communication, maintain confidentiality, listen to feedback, and accommodate stakeholder perspectives into our decision-making processes. Our people are the core of what we do, of carrying out our mandate and upholding the highest level of governance. By carefully selecting and rewarding scarce skills, we ensure that the bank stays on top of its performance goals. I thank you.
Thank you so much to the interim chair, talking us through institutional governance and also a strong institutional culture that allows that strategies that can go up to 10 years are properly overlooked, or rather there's proper oversight by the board as well. So thank you, Martie Janse van Rensburg. She did use the term development impact, and I think this is really important as we talk about the changing times or the shifting sands of the world in which we live at the moment. And when people are looking for, change, access, opportunity, better services from their municipalities in terms of the infrastructure, schools, hospitals, if commercially the private sector can't come in there, then who must? And I think there is a case that's being made here today for the multilateral development banks, not just in South Africa, but across the continent, especially as the interim chair talks about integrating markets through new trade networks that were made reference to. So to speak to that story of how you build strength and expand on impact, that development impact, is the CEO of the Dbsa. We know that she is the first woman to be appointed CEO, but she herself has a long professional history with the organization, having been CFO, a chartered accountant, and also Harvard executive trained. So please welcome Boitumelo Mosako as she speaks to building on our strength and expanding our impact.
Okay. Do not be deceived by the picture, but I do promise you that it is a recent picture. As you know, we have the option to change our hairstyles as and when we wish. That is the benefits that we have as Black ladies. I would firstly like to thank our shareholder, who's going to be represented here today by the Deputy Minister of Finance, Dr. David Masondo. Secondly, to thank our board members, led by our interim chairperson, Martie Janse van Rensburg. I'd like to thank all our institutional investors who are here, the commercial banks that are represented here, all our partners that are represented here, the international development finance institutions, the multilateral development banks. I'd like to thank Team Dbsa for all the work, for your commitment to the vision and the mandate of our bank. You see, I start with gratitude because with all the people that I have mentioned, I am today presenting our financial results. Let me go to the next slide. I brought all my paper and digital. Now, let's reflect a little bit on our mandate as the Dbsa. promote economic development and sustainable growth. As we all know, as a country, as a continent, one of the key things we need to drive is economic growth. We are the second fastest growing continent globally. After emerging Asia, we are currently growing as a continent between 3% and 4%. But that is not the case in all regions of the continent. The southern part lagging behind, the eastern part leading the pack. It is critical for us to continue to drive economic growth. Promote human capital, resources, and institutional capacity building. We continue to do that through the various initiatives that we support as the bank, and I will touch on that a little bit later. Mobilizing financial resources. That is our mandate, to mobilize financial resources. As our chairperson has already said, we leverage the equity that has been given to us by our government, by raising capital and on lending to execute on our mandate. I was reflecting and I was looking at the numbers on the last time there was a capital injection in the bank to support our growth. This was 7, 8 years ago. I think we are 2012 to 2013 when the capitalization started. And I was looking at our balance sheet, and I was looking at, when I look at the capital that has come in and the retained earnings that we have generated as the bank, 4 times over the capital that has been put in. We need to facilitate sustainable development projects. This talks to the work and the precursor to this number that I'm going to be talking to, the 91.3 billion. We do know that as an institution, we can't go at it alone. We are a market maker, and we have to always make sure that we facilitate and enable infrastructure development. From this mandate, we have developed 4 strategic objectives: accelerate development impact, financial sustainability, smart partnerships, and a future-fit Dbsa. How are we doing all of this? We have decided as an institution that we'll focus on infrastructure development. Infrastructure development is what drives economic growth. Infrastructure development is what brings dignity to citizens of any nation. We're focusing on digital infrastructure, transport, energy, water, and on the social sectors, we focus on healthcare, education, and affordable housing. And the recent thing that we have done as an institution is to then say, with all of these opportunities that are there on the continent, how do we create new industries? We have decided to put risk capital up and support what we call a high-impact investment portfolio, where we support the commercialization of new technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, what have we achieved? 91.3 billion in infrastructure catalyzation and development. What do I mean by that? As I had said, we do know that as a development finance institution, we can't do it alone. Yes, we have dispersed 17.5 billion in projects this year, similar to what we did last year. But you see, there was a big reset in disbursements that happened from the 2023-2024 year, where our disbursements level went up by more than 20%. I remember our CFO sharing the results internally and saying, this is the lowest level we're going to have in disbursements. And knowing Team Dbsa, they will probably take it on to another level. We have dispersed in various sectors, and I'd like to add that 22% of those disbursements went towards supporting municipalities. Municipalities remain a critical sector for the development, for the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Because municipalities are the institutions that enable service delivery. Yes, we have challenges in those spaces, different forms of challenges. But as an institution, we believe that within what we control, within our risk parameters, we cannot sit and join the critics. We have to show up and say, how do we help? How do we support? What solutions do we need to come up with to ensure and support service delivery for our communities? We have supported under-resourced municipalities. The under-resourced municipalities, those are rural municipalities, through a program that we have developed as the bank called Partner a District. We were very deliberate in this program as an institution, in that we were very clear that those we work with must be willing. It's a willing coalition arrangement. If you are an under-resourced municipality who wants to enable service delivery, who wants to see an improvement in the lives of your people, who wants a strong institution, and who wants to create an economic hub for your municipality, we are ready to work with you. We've had 8 municipalities joining that program. And through that program, we have managed, as part of this 91.3 billion, to unlock infrastructure of more than 2.8 billion, and we have a pipeline of more than 7 billion that we have from the work that we have done. The team has worked really hard in working with the munis to do a diagnostic, a deep dive on the needs and coming up with the solutions and doing preparation work to support the bankability of the projects and the development of the projects. The work we do is not necessarily limited to the Willing Coalition initiative, which is the Partner a District. We still continue to support many other municipalities with planning work, with revenue enhancement work as well. The third thing I want to touch on that has contributed to this is our infrastructure delivery division. When I was reflecting on the work of the infrastructure delivery division, just 5 years ago, only 5 years ago, we were delivering 2.4 billion in infrastructure on the ground. I'd like to add that this division was formed to augment state capacity, to develop we have a team of more than 120 people within the bank that enable the implementation of these projects, to accelerate infrastructure development. For this division, we started at 5 years ago, we were at 2.4 billion. And today, we have achieved, this year alone, we did 5.2 billion. And that is an increase of more than 15% for what we did last year. So the team, and this is a division that we are expecting growth from. And when the panel touches on is that this service we do not only provide in South Africa, this is a service that we implement with our partners in the rest of the region. The next thing I want to touch on is what we facilitate as an institution through the various investment programs that we have developed. The Dbsa has adopted what we know that I had said our strategic objective is to accelerate development impact. We can't do it project by project. We have to do it at scale and with speed. And with the investment programs that we have developed in energy, we have catalyzed projects to the tune of 42.3 billion, in mostly of 39 billion of that in the energy space. So this is how we have contributed as an institution to development impact in the year 2025. I'm actually looking at the Chief Investment Officer of the Infrastructure Fund, and I'm actually saying, these numbers do not actually include the exceptional work that the Infrastructure Fund has accomplished in getting approval for BFI project to the tune of 37 billion and having a project pipeline of more than 100 billion. Now let's move to our net profit number. Team Dbsa, are you looking at this? From 4.6 billion to 5.3 billion. That's a 15.2% increase in net profit. As a development finance institution, I'll emphasize, the strategic objective is financial sustainability. It is not super profits. But what this does, what this shows, is we sit even in a stronger position to do more as an institution. We sit in a stronger position to provide the technical assistance that is required, to invest in more project preparation activities, to invest more in the D-Lab program that we have developed as the bank. A little bit about the D-Labs program. It's D-Lab standing for Development Labs. This is an initiative we started 3-4 years ago. I think it was just after COVID, where we actually implemented our first site, where we are saying, let's see how we can revitalize township economies by creating a system that provides infrastructure, youth development through digital skill training, support for entrepreneurs, sports development, and just creating communities that, through sports, communities that come together and celebrate their talents. One of the 2 flagship things that I'd like to mention that we've done in the D-Labs is, bringing jobs to the people through the call center initiatives that we have implemented with our partners in Jabulani, where more than 100 young people are employed, and in LX as well, just to give a few examples of what this program has achieved. Our profits, yes, we have a liability management strategy where we continue to manage our cost of funds as an institution, mobilizing funds from all of you, making sure that we negotiate hard for pricing. As you know, we are part of a system where capital justice remains a challenge. Cost of capital on our continent is 4 times higher than in developed markets, yet the need remains on the continent. But despite these challenges, we continue to navigate and we continue to deliver. The last thing I'd like to touch on our profitability. The CFO is going to be going into a lot of detail on the numbers. The last thing I want to touch on is Team Dbsa. The importance of having the right culture within an organization, the importance of having the right talent within the organization to execute on this mandate. Yes, we know we are all in this room, and I can tell you we all wrestle for this talent, right? We all wrestling for the same talent, and I just want to say that it is critical for us to ensure that, we retain this talent to execute on our decadal strategy. Then we have our total assets, and that is our balance sheet. It's grown slightly, but not at the level and the ambition that we're working towards for our decadal strategy, but a strong foundation to work from to support our decadal strategy. The CFO will be touching in detail on those numbers, our strong, where we actively manage our NPL ratios as an institution through active portfolio management and risk management, and to our funders, to our treasury team, in sourcing funds from all over the world. Last year, we had the opportunity to diversify our sources of funds, signed concessional, because that's our role, to mobilize concessional funding. We actually managed to secure concessional funds. I think it's the best concessional funding we've ever had as an institution, last year by our treasury team led by the CFO at that time from one of the international DFIs. Now let's get to impact on the ground in terms of what all of this has done. 36,102 learners. I'm a numbers person, so they must add up, and I must have the detail of what makes up these numbers. We built 15 new schools. We refurbished 9 schools. And through the sanitation program, we had the SAFE program with the Department of Education. We had 11,325 learners benefiting from the work that we have done. I really want to thank the government departments that we work with. We're currently at more than 34 that have trusted us with being an implementing partner in them executing on their infrastructure implementation mandate. The Department of Education, the Department of Health, and many others, Parliament, that we continue to support. We've had 1,643 youth trained through our DLabs program. We have supported 11,231 SMMEs. We have created 37,099 jobs. This counting of jobs is only at the first tier. We actually do not provide the numbers at the second tier and the third tier as well. This is from our investment activities, from our infrastructure implementation activities, and from our infrastructure delivery activities. We have funded SMMEs to the tune of 4.8 billion, and out of that, we have supported women-owned entities to the tune of 2.6 billion. I think they wouldn't be happy with me if if they didn't show up, if the women didn't show up in the results. This is something that, as an institution, we do not take lightly. Gender mainstreaming, women empowerment, supporting women-owned businesses is key. There is no country that can prosper without the involvement of women. In terms of our governance, unqualified audit opinion for over 40 years. In the words of the Auditor General, clean audit for the Dbsa. We are rated by Moody's Ba3. I think we are one notch below the state, and 2 on the S&P side. I'm not going to get into the detail of the rating agencies. It's a great day today. We are AAA rated by ADFI. The Association of African DFIs have a rating system that was developed by the World Bank that actually rates development banks, and we are AA rated based on that system. We continue to have accreditation with the Global Climate Facility and the Global Environmental Facility. These are climate funds that have been created to support climate finance across the globe. I think we're one of the first entities to actually be accredited on the continent. And we still continue because we get reviewed constantly as well, and the accreditation remains. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I think Lerato now will be handing over to the CFO, who will be giving us a little bit more color on the results of the Dbsa. I thank you.
Thank you very much to the CE. I think you brought the color, the personality, the hairstyles, the passion, the compassion as well. And thank you very much for your presentation. And just for reminding us that in an era where there's been a significant retreat in global development financing, you're still able to mobilize resources. You've recorded, as you showed us, a 15% increase in your net profit, and you're doing the hard work, which is to support municipalities and also go where others fear to tread, building of social infrastructure, things that aren't considered to be profitable, schools and hospitals. But you do that because you used the word dignity, because ordinary people deserve dignity. And at the municipal level is that coalface of service delivery, and it's about the people. So thank you very much for that. And then, of course, she beat the drum for gender mainstreaming. And as she said that, I thought to myself, gosh, interim chair, a woman, CEO, a woman. And the woman I'm about to introduce to you right now is another one of those high-performing women. And so without further ado, the color that we want, the breakdown of the numbers, where the disbursements are, where the performance has been, and where we're going to really see that future forward thinking for building a prosperous Africa. I'd like to introduce to you the CFO of the Dbsa, herself a qualified chartered accountant, an investment professional with extensive experience, also Harvard-trained, Wits-trained, Stellenbosch-trained, strong skill set. Her name is Zodwa Mbele. I want to say we're related. We're not. But I'm going to claim her anyway. Zodwa Mbele, CFO.
Thank you very much, Lerato. You are the sister from another mother, and thank you very much, CE and Mati, those who have spoken before me. And good morning, everyone. So I'm going to take you through the third segment of the, okay, I can see here at least, third segment of the presentation, which contains the financial results. As you can see, that the bank has performed very well under very difficult circumstances. If you look at the economic growth of South Africa, for instance, it's been very sluggish for the longest time, not giving us enough opportunities for us to lend or to provide more intervention. And also, if you look at the countries that we operate in, most of them have suffered some setback with respect to their debt sustainabilities. If you look at the West African countries, East African countries, and some within the Central African countries, they suffered quite a lot with the restructuring of the IMF. And also bringing it back home here, we also face the headwinds of the interest rates, which cycle, which was quite low in this financial period. It's not good for the type of business that you are involved in, but it's good for the consumer. Also, with respect to the strengthening of the currency, it doesn't augur very well for the kind of business that you are involved in as a bank, given that some of the book is of hard currency. So again, the geopolitical tensions also resulted in some trade wars and the tariffs. If you recall, beginning of the current year, there was some uncertainty. As a result of that, people didn't know what will pan out in the end. So we had to be strategic in repositioning ourselves. So the circumstances were quite not promising at the beginning of the year. So that gives you the context within which we are presenting the results, and definitely this is a stellar result under the circumstances. Coming to the financial highlights as presented here, you would also notice that we have achieved, in some cases, the double-digit performance. Starting with the net interest income, I'll give you the details in the following slides. The net interest income has gone up by 8.6%. Obviously, the ROE also, as a result of the net interest income, and the net profit also benefited from that. But really pleasing to see our net profit at 14.4%, and I'll talk more about that in the next slides. If you look at the leverage ratios as well, the debt to equity ratio also at 11%, which is quite very low, which allows us more room for us to borrow more and increase our equity base. If you look at the cost to income ratio at 22%, I'll discuss that in the next slides as well. It's not the number that you ordinarily see in the financial services at that level. Disbursements, we'll talk more, give some color with respect to that at 17.5 billion. More importantly, it's the quality of our book. If you look at the non-performing loan at 3.2 compared to the previous year, 3.8, and we'll talk more the details in the next slides. And the cash that was collected this year, it's really record cash collection at 27 billion. Last year, we collected about 23 billion, which was quite high as well. So really, if you look at these numbers, it's quite pleasing to see the progress that you are making as a bank. So going back to the growth, in terms of our revenue growth, you would see that the growth the trajectory has been just an upward trajectory since 2017 to the point where we are. But the drivers for this particular year of the growth in our revenue is as a result of the additional book that we put in, the new disbursement, and obviously the disbursement coming from the previous years. But importantly also to note that not all the book is financed through debt. So we still benefit from the endowment effect, the big equity base that we have. So some of the book is financed from the endowment effect. As a result, we still have that interest income that is high that we earn with respect to that. Again, the strength of the rand, you can see that coming through to offset a bit of our interest income by about 99 million with respect to that. And I do need to say that, maybe just on the other slide, so the previous slide. I don't know what has gone wrong. But what I wanted to add on the revenue growth is also the strategies that we deploy from the Treasury point of view. In anticipation of the interest rate coming down, Treasury had locked in some of the interest rate on certain book so that we do not suffer the downward spiral of the interest rate. So this is why we need to be proactive in navigating such circumstances. Then moving on to our profitability, which is quite also a resilient profit. I would like you to focus on the last 3 years, which is 2023, 2024, 25. 2025 is a very good year. This is the first time we are achieving 5.3 billion, and it's a clean number. When I say it's a clean number, it doesn't have volatility of FX, which we benefited from in 2023. So in 2023, the 5.2 that you see there, it had 800 million FX gain, which was obviously weakening of the currency. So it was good for us in 2023, and we benefited from that. Then moving forward to 2024, that gain narrowed down from 800 million to about 128. This is why we had a dip in our strong profitability there and the resilience. Whereas in 2025, we actually sustained the Forex losses to a tune of about 55 million thereabout, and some of it that you have seen the impact coming through from the top line of the interest revenue. So you can see that really we do not benefit from the market, from the FX like we did in 2023. So it's quite a clean number. So it's a very pleasing set of results with respect to that. And again, other than the FX, usually there's a mark-to-mark valuation impact. It was quite negligible this year. So it's really, what you see is really the number. It's nothing that you have some invisible hand that benefited you. So it's really good work and the work on the ground. Moving on to the cost-to-income ratio. Much as this number is low at 22%, going forward, this ratio would go up because of the strategic strategic investment that we'll need to invest in. I think CE kind of mentioned that we have growth aspiration, and in that growth aspiration, we need to invest in technology, in digital technologies. We also need to invest in people, meaning hiring more people, more talent, high quality talent, more hands on deck. So that does require some resources to be released. But also, we also need to invest in our foundational, technologies as we move forward. Those who are quite familiar with how SAP is moving, there's a SAP HANA, which is quite ERP that is, which would require quite substantial amount of investment. So we believe that number will also be ticking up as we move. That ratio will be ticking up as we move forward with our strategies. So coming back to the geographical footprint of the bank, as I said, some of the book is hard currency because we lend into different countries. 70% of the book is South African dominated, domiciled, and the rest is outside South Africa, rest of Africa. You would also note on the map there, we indicate the countries that we have invested in, largely we focus on our sub-Saharan region. You'll also see there the West African countries, both the Francophone as well as the Anglophones. That's where we invest as a bank. In the northern countries, we don't necessarily invest in those countries because they're quite advanced, maybe not advanced like in the Western world, but the capital market is quite deep enough such that the intervention of the institutions like the Dbsa does not have any meaningful contribution. So the focus is really on the sub-Saharan region, East African countries, as you can see, the Central Africa, as well as the Indian Ocean islands that you can see in those. Mauritius, not necessarily the deals in Mauritius, but because some of the structures are structured via the Mauritian vehicles. Looking into the disbursement per sector, I think the CE had already touched on it, but we did not classify in this particular case according to client counterparties, which would be the municipal segment. In this case, it's just the sectors that we have invested in. You'll also note that energy is one of those that we have disbursed towards. Given that the energy sector is very matured, both in South Africa and other countries, there's many opportunities to invest in the energy sector. And it makes sense that you see it penning it the way it does with respect to the disbursement. If we look into the record cash collection of 27 billion, 64% of that is from South Africa and the 36% is from countries outside South Africa. What you'll also note, this is also corroborating the asset quality book that we have, the asset quality of our book, which I'm getting into in the next slides. So at 113 billion, if I'm reading that number properly, I'm wearing glasses as well because sometimes you do need to wear glasses so that you change how you look on the day. So as you can see that our book is increasing at 118 billion, I think it is, thereabout. You'll see also that so will be the impairment, the credit loss provision will also increase at 15 billion. Not only because of that, also we have the overlays that we put in where the countries are vulnerable, as I've indicated, the debt sustainability issues in certain countries meant that we had to add more in our impairment charges, not necessarily because you focus on the risk that is crystallizing. And in some cases with the municipalities, we do the same. So you see that is 15 billion credit loss provision. Coming back to the gross NPLs, non-performing loans, you'll note that the non-performing loans have declined to 3.2 versus the 3.8 in the previous financial year, largely due to the restructurings. We have appetite to restructure the debt, and in restructuring, the efforts do bear some fruits. As they bear the fruits, we start to see the migration of what we call the stage 3, because largely the non-performing loans are in stage 3. They start to migrate from stage 3 to stage 2 because they are performing the certain criteria that needs to be met, and this is why you see the reduction in our gross NPLs. It's as a result of the restructuring of efforts bearing fruits, including the cash collections as well. So all that talks to the quality of the book that the bank is writing. Also, moving on to the asset quality, we have kind of also being very specific with the municipalities. In this case, not all the counterparties have been extracted, but the municipalities, because as mentioned earlier on in the presentations, it is a big business of the bank. 31% of our book consists of municipalities. So it makes sense that we also give some further color with respect to the performance of that book. You'd also note that in terms of the non-performing loans, attributable to the municipalities, it's only a negligible percentage of 0.04%. And that is also corroborated by what was collected from the municipalities against what was contractually agreed with the municipalities. As you can see, the two numbers, they match what the receipts of what was actually received in the bank account, what was contractually due. There isn't much of a difference, save for about 4 million thereabout that we see in there. So indeed, and it's always a case that we get this question, how is it that municipalities pay Dbsa but they fail to pay Eskom? But that's the reality of it. It's because we also have a long-term appetite in restructuring municipalities, staying longer in the game with the municipalities, have other interventions other than just the financial interventions and working other than lending. We have also non-lending interventions with the municipalities where we also help them, to ride through the tide such that they come back and start to perform. So that's really how it works with the municipalities, which is possibly slightly different from the other approaches, because others would say you are really much under pressure. We are seeing you are not collecting as the municipalities. Maybe it's about time we pull the plug. That's not how the DFI operates within the municipal space. We stay longer because of the risk appetite that we have with respect to that. Once again, on the strong liquidity position, at the end of the financial year, we ended up with 15 billion. The 15 billion was achieved for using two-pronged strategy. One, I had indicated earlier on that there were uncertainties, geopolitical tensions at the beginning of the year, and the tariff discussions and the curtailment of grants by the US to different countries. We took a position that we do need to bulk up a bit on our cash position because we didn't know what we didn't know at that point. But secondly, there was also a timing lag with respect to some of the disbursement that we had anticipated that will materialize at year end, which subsequently materialized in April and May. And as a result, the frontline team has performed very well ahead of the target when it comes to disbursement because of that timing lag. Coming back to the strong capital base, as we have said, we are moving from the strong capital base, and we've seen the benefit of having a strong capital base because it does come through when it comes to the interest income, because not all the loans are written against or from leverage position, but also from our endowment effect. As you can see, we still have a headroom to grow as much as possible with respect to this ratio at 78%. Within the target range of the 250%. So we still can grow up to our aspirations being achieved in about 9 years' time without necessarily reaching our limit with respect to the leverage ratio of 250%. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to have further discussions with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much to you, Sis Zoto, and I think that was a great place to leave it, where you said, in a world where we don't know what we know, it's great to cushion for the blows and to create a stronger cash position, some runway for the future. It's the sustainability that was referred to earlier on. So thank you so much for your efforts. There was no need to wear the glasses unless you're telling us that you're short-sighted. There's no need for the disguise. Those were good results. So congratulations to the CFO and her team. I think she deserves an applause. As we said earlier on, we're not just doing numbers today. We'd also like to reflect on the broader mandate of the DBSA, the fiscal sustainability that has been referred to this morning, but also the solutioning, the fix for some of the many developmental challenges we're seeing within Southern Africa and the continent as a whole, and how to prepare for those projects. Because as we heard, a multilateral is in it for the long haul. So seeing today the brave new world that is coming 4, 5, 6 years from now. And so we're going to have that conversation now about the infrastructure value chain and which are some of the impactful projects that the DBSA has already started to invest in and started to prepare for in future. And those who will be talking us through this future planning is Lebogang Sperepere, who's the Acting Group Executive for Project Preparation, joined by Mpho Mokwele, who's the Group Executive for Transacting, and then we're also joined by Trini Rampele, who's the Group Executive for Infrastructure Delivery. So please come through. I guess this is where the gender parity kicks in. 3 for 3.
So,
We're fair. 3 women leaders, 3 male leaders. It's 50-50. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. So, firstly, as we look at the results, we've reflected on them, and we'll do so in a short while as well. It seems to me with your teams. So let's find out a little bit more about that. I'm going to start off with the issue of project, or the question of project preparation, especially on the transport nodes. We've heard a lot being said about it by the Minister of Transport, and of course, there's an AFCFTA coming. We're going to need that infrastructure, ports, rail, roads. So let's talk about the work that you're doing, especially around the PSP and other areas. Lebogang, please tell us more.
all right. Thanks, Lerato, and good morning still. Let me start with the identity of who we are as a bank. We are an infrastructure bank, and we are very clear about that. To echo on what the CE spoke about earlier on, we believe infrastructure provides access to services. And with that, we provide dignity and justice to the broader community of South Africa and the rest of Africa. So that's, I'll take it from that point of view. We, throughout the value chain of the DBSA, together with my colleagues, we play throughout. I know you spoke about the PSP from a rail point of view, and I'll talk to it in a moment. We've presented the sectors that we participate. You would have seen in the presentation from the CE, energy features very prominently in our thing. However, we do have social infrastructure such as student housing. We've got water and sanitation, and transport and logistics, of course. And the way in which we are structured from a role point of view, and I think it's important that we provide context in terms of the role of DBSA within the infrastructure setting. We do planning, infrastructure planning, and we do project preparation, which is where mostly I sit on. And then Mpho would sit on the finance and investment side, and then Trini would sit on the building and operating side. So we are in the full value chain of the infrastructure development, and hence we say we are an infrastructure bank. So we get our hands dirty throughout the value chain. How do we do it? We do it at an individual project level, and also we do it at a programmatic level. And from a programmatic level, we take what we refer to a country platform approach. What do we mean by a country platform approach? Whilst we are a bank, we need to be sustainable, as indicated earlier on. we look at it at enabling the broader market for financing and investing opportunities, as it were. We'll talk to various programs that we've had, and similarly with the Rail PSP, what we seek to do, we seek to create an enabling environment so that we can attract investment and financing for the broader market, as it were. We are not doing it just for ourselves, we're doing it for the rest of the country, and in certain cases throughout the region, and the CFO did show the work that we're doing. The CE spoke broadly about the partnerships. We hold those very close to our heart. We work with various partners. We'll start locally. The National Treasury, as the shareholder, is not only the shareholder, but is a key partner to the work that we do within the programs, and we will elaborate and do that. And also, internally, we've got an elaborated, and the CE spoke about, infrastructure fund that we use from a blending point of view, and the CE did give some numbers. I mean, just only last year, we've worked on unlocking about just over 20 billion of budget for infrastructure facility, which allows us to develop projects or to the tune of 46 billion. And that, one of the markets, and maybe let me take the time maybe to brag a bit, the ports of entry. I know everyone always complains about the ports of entry that we have, and there is work, and the market has been excited with that particular project, as it were, or program that we've worked on in the background to help support the National Department of Home Affairs together with the Border Management Authority, as it were. Let me then come back to the Rail PSP. Again, it's just to elaborate the point and emphasize the role that we play within this space is to enable investment broadly. And this investment we're looking at it, it's almost about 400 billion rands worth of investment that we need to do. So as a bank, we're not going to do this thing alone. But we're working, as you indicated, Lerato, the Minister of Transport has already been speaking about it. We've developed a partnership together with the Department of Transport, as well as National Treasury. As I said, they're not only a shareholder, but we also work with them in that regard. And again, with this in the background, we would have had presidency through Operation Vulindlela that we would have worked with to develop and unlock these programs, as it were. We're looking at this program in twofold. The first part of the program will focus on the freight rail, and the second part of it would look into the the second part of it would look into the passenger rail. We would have known that within the freight rail, we've had various challenges. Those of us that travel on the roads within South African point of view, we encounter delays through to traffic and so forth. But it's not the most efficient use of our road infrastructure. Yeah. We need certain goods on our rail, as it were. So we're looking into that. And with that, we've ran an RFI process that had just concluded. And we think that we should be in a position to at least go on the first project or first program that would look into the dry bulk terminal that we would go out into market. We're hoping that by November we would go out in that regard. And you would note that I think it's generally the attitude of government. The ministers are very strict on these timelines, and every time we have engagements, the emphasis of the timeline. So the first phase, we're looking into it. But also parallel to that, as I indicated, on the passenger rail as well, we're also looking to support the passenger rail, and which is very complementary to some of the work that we're doing insofar as the bus transport, the BRT point of view. So we, again, on the transport, on the passenger rail, we're playing throughout the value chain as well, including in the taxis. So we do work in Abubabum Kize, Abubabum Lefe. We've got a pilot project that we've done, which is Tandabantu from Maravastad to Randbeck, which is about 20 million rands. But we're looking to corporatize the taxi industry, as it were. So the passenger rail also, passenger transport, it's key to us. And I did say, dignity is core to what we do. We seek to bring the cost of transport for the people that go to work every day. We seek to provide them with decent and affordable transport, as it were, from a rail point of view, as it were. And I did speak to the numbers from a rail point of, from a transport pardon me, from a fried rail point of view, the numbers that we're looking into is to get to about 250 million tons per annum. I think at some point, Transnet at its peak was about 220. So the idea is to try to get Transnet back and for it to do more in that regard. And again, it will save us money that we spend on our road infrastructure, where we complain about particularly on the national roads, where we do have, in certain cases, we do have backlogs, as it were. And similarly, on the passenger trips, we're also looking at increasing it to about 600 million trips per annum. Let me pause there insofar as that's the work that we're looking to do on the rail side of things.
I just have a question as a follow-up, but I can't help myself. As you said, we also work Nabo Babum Kize. I'm like, what's happening at the DBSA? The taxi drivers are willing to work with you. The municipalities are willing to pay their banks. Is there something in the water there at the DBSA? That's just me being facetious. But what you've also done is break down for us what's happening at the macro level, core, big, bulk economic infrastructure, and then what happens at the micro levels, student housing, the projects that many people would say are not commercially viable, but you get in there anyway. Can you just elaborate for me the two-streamed kind of approach to development you have?
Okay, thanks. As I said earlier on, and I think the CFO did speak to the issue around the work that we do in the municipalities. They are at the center of service delivery, so we cannot shy away and wish them away, because all of us would not be able to get here. We get excited, and I'm sure many of you, as you drove into with Catherine Road, doesn't matter which direction, there is the BRT work that is there. These are things that excite us. Every day, we challenge ourselves to find solutions that make these projects bankable. And bankable from our side, it's slightly different to maybe how our colleagues within the commercial space would look into it. For us, part of it is to come in with instruments. Earlier on, I spoke about the BFI that we work on, the Budget Facility for Infrastructure. The CE earlier on spoke about some of the partners that we work with also tend to support us in some of these programs. Some are international, the likes of the GCFs, the likes of GEF, and SECO in that regard. So we work throughout in those elements, and we not only have a commercial lens in these projects, but we have a big developmental lens in it with the justness that is at the center of what we seek to do when we talk about from a just transition point of view. So that's critical for us to look into it. That being said, it still remains important that the infrastructure is on the ground, and hence we play throughout the value chain, and it helps us to mitigate some of the risks. For an example, where we find that there's no capacity to build, the IDD comes into play to help manage those risks from an implementation point of view. Our solution is not just to throw in money and hope that we get the results. Yeah. In actual fact, more and more we are being tasked and challenged to then say, how do we ensure that we see the infrastructure on the ground vis-a-vis the money that we tend to that we disperse? And that's a key work that we've been focusing on.
Lots of sort of risk mitigation across departments. And Mpomkweli, let's bring you in. I love what was said by Lebogang initially. Project preparation, A, financing, B, build, C. So you're literally sitting in that order. Okay, so let's talk about bankability, definitions of bankability in the market that has been, in the market conditions that have been described to us right now. You oversee a lot of the client relationships. You then find and create a lot of those funding solutions, and then you do the disbursements over quite a large footprint. So maybe you just talk to us about the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you, Lerato. I must say it's a real pleasure to be speaking here and having an opportunity to speak to the amazing work that has been done by Team Dbsa. And I'm sure they will all be proud in terms of all these numbers that we are about to present. The CFO did say the front line has performed very well. And I'm the front line. I represent the front line. So it's me, just so you know. And I thought it's quite important for us to just cover some of the infrastructure projects that sit behind the financial results that have just been announced by our CFO and CE. just to bring it to life in terms of what we've done. So firstly, if you look at the numbers on your screen, our funding approvals increased from 39 billion to 57 billion for the year. And that indicates an increased level of investment activity for the year. Our funding commitments, and just to define that, those are transactions with signed finance agreements. So we are ready to disperse under those transactions. So those numbers increased from 21 billion to 31 billion. So it's a commendable 10 billion increase for the year under review. Then if you look at your disbursements, the number that was talked about earlier on, so from a capital deployment point of view, we deployed about 17.5 billion rands for the year under review. And it's a commendable increase as well against the target that we had set ourselves. So that demonstrates, increased infrastructure delivery across the entire continent from our side. And the one thing that I wanted to say in terms of mentioning these numbers, the numbers are the numbers, they're significant as you can see, but they do tell our story as a development finance institution in terms of the progress that we're making in terms of infrastructure delivery. And that is quite important as well. And our work centers around connecting the 600 million people on the continent that remain unconnected, that don't have access to electricity. It centers around regional integration. So we promote regional integration via the various infrastructure projects that we finance across the entire continent in the various key sectors, be it rail, the ports, the energy projects. Many of them were mentioned earlier on, not forgetting social infrastructure as well. And just to bring it even more to life in terms of the various transactions that we were involved in during the year under review, the Embedded Generation Investment Program is our key initiative when it comes to us decarbonizing our loan book. Earlier on, we talked about the just transition. So this program speaks to us advancing our just transition agenda. So to date, we've got a portfolio of about 7.2 billion under this program, where we financed renewable energy projects across different technologies in project sizes, a project capacity of projects with a total capacity of 1,100 megawatts. In the municipal space, we talked about earlier on that municipalities are key. Municipalities are key to ensuring that there is service delivery in our communities. So despite their many challenges, it's quite important for us to continue to support them. So we provided funding to the tune of 4 billion to various municipalities across our country in line with our integrated municipal approach. And now in the water space, we provided or committed funding of about 6.85 billion to 2 bulk water scheme projects. And going to Kenya, we supported a geothermal energy project, which is a size of 38 megawatts. And this speaks to the work that we are doing in the region. The Dbsa played a sole mandated lead arranger role in the transaction. And lastly, in line with our equity investment strategy, we invested in a fund. This is a multi-country infrastructure fund that finances infrastructure across the entire continent, where we invested about $20 million in that fund. And the reason I mentioned this fund is because we partnered with the likes of the African Development Bank and various other multilateral development banks and DFIs. And it speaks to what we spoke about earlier on. Smart partnerships are quite important, collaboration, because we can't do it alone. We know the infrastructure need is quite significant on the continent. So it's quite important for us to partner, to unlock this infrastructure gap, a significant infrastructure gap on the continent. So we did exactly that under this fund. But all in all, just to sum it up, I wanted to say, and a lot of the speakers before me said, the Dbsa is driving development impact. We are driving the just transition agenda, and we are strengthening regional integration. So that's all the work that we do. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mpho. Just again, perhaps maybe just for my benefit, a little bit of some clarification. I mean, if I understood the CFO's results properly, they've done a lot to mitigate risk, to build a good cash runway for the future. So preparing for the rainy day, restructuring a lot of the debts so that people do pay back the debts, and then you can build a quality asset book. And then she also said, you know, about 2/3 of the book are South African-based projects, and then about 1/3 is what's happening in the rest of Africa. I stand to be corrected. But within the context of the headwinds that we keep talking about, sticky growth, stagnant growth, here, debt-ridden governments in the rest of the continent, I mean, when you are navigating this field for you, what are the considerations?
Look, the considerations is what you spoke about earlier on, in terms of, and I spoke about partnership and collaboration. And yes, we've got the many challenges around infrastructure, but we do navigate. We have a really good business development team, our coverage team, that navigates the entire continent, that covers the SADC region and outside of SADC region, that goes and finds all of these infrastructure projects to make sure that the DBSA does cover the infrastructure needs of the entire continent. Project preparation, as we spoke about earlier on, is at the center of what we do, and we're about to bolster our project preparation activities on the continent, because a lot of the projects, as everyone was saying, remain unbankable. So it's quite important for us to intervene. There is no shortage of capital, as we always say. So that is, in simple terms, that's how we keep on navigating through this difficult terrain, but we do it via smart partnerships and collaboration with our partners.
Due diligence every step of the way. Shweni Rampele, let's bring you into the conversation, because I've been told that IDD has really come up with an interesting, even some would say a unique model of infrastructure delivery and project management and risk management. And we also heard that when this division can't quite take it on, they see whether you're willing to take it on. So kind of pairing that risk, sharing of tasks. So perhaps tell us about IDD, infrastructure delivery, and the work that you're doing, and why this particular model that has been crafted by the DBSA is seen as somewhat unique within the multilateral space.
No, thank you so much, Lerato. Much appreciation to you and the partners here. And I think from the morning, as we started the program, I think we can conclude also by just saying DBSA is a powerful organization. And that's where we draw strength, particularly to then say, when we looked at the infrastructure landscape in South Africa, we felt let's not be critical looking at how much money is returned back to the fiscals on unfinished projects or projects not having been done. We thought at that point in time, and which was particularly around 2013, 2014 financial year, we inaugurated this infrastructure delivery capability. And if you look at it, it's a very unique model. You may not even find it in Africa and in the world in terms of that integration, as was indicated, from prep, planning, prep, finance, build, and maintain. And that's the areas that we're really dealing with. And part of our purpose of existence is simply to augment the capacity of the state to deliver and maintain infrastructure. And that's what the CS actually emphasized. But in that context, I should also then mention that we remain resolute to sustain the strategic relevance, and not necessarily for today, even for tomorrow, even for the future. And why I'm saying that is because what we integrated in our approach was basically to understand that projects happen at a community level. So the community-centricness becomes one of the key components of our, of our ingredients in how we deal with projects. The second, component is, again, appreciation of the fact that there's transformation that is required. And in transformation, you need to be deliberate. And if you're not deliberate, you'll not achieve anything. That's why we're really dealing with the issue of women, as has been emphasized, and youth, to then say, if we really would want to turn the economy around, we should really be in a position to be predictive in that area. And the other issue is basically to say, our delivery model is not only the us and them. We work with contractors, we work with the engineering companies, we work with the partners. And then our approach and the simple language we speak is that of partnership. So when we contract, we treat everyone as a partner. And the reason why we do that is to ensure that everybody plays his role in the process of delivery. And one of the key things is that we also then innovated around coming up with some bit of a working capital model of supporting the contractors, understanding, especially after COVID, you started realizing many of our contractors got hit. Whenever you appoint them, it's difficult for them to start the project because they just don't have the capital to start. And I think our esteemed board then considered that, look, let's then make a provision around that to make sure that whoever that we appoint, we're actually bolstering, bolstering the working capital of these contractors for them to deliver for our government. So, in the decade of existence, Lerato, of the Dbsa IDD, we delivered, 39.8 billion, and I want to emphasize that to say 39.8 billion of infrastructure that tangibly you can touch and see. So, and out of that, as he has indicated, for this financial year, indeed, we have done 5.2 billion, and on average, we look at it from 2013, 2014. We really were prevailing. We've been growing at a 12% kind of an increase. But if you look at it, education sector and health sector has been our core drivers of these achievements. But our proven record also of delivery has made us to be a trusted partner. So hence, as the C has indicated, we grew from 2 clients, which is education and health, in 2013 to about 36 now as we speak. So that gives you a sense of saying you are a trusted partner, and we really would want to then ensure that that particular kind of trusted partnership is sustained. And that I'm talking on a national and a regional space. Right. So now, notably, the trust placed on the Dbsa made us to design and implement projects of national and regional interest. And there are 3 flagship projects that I just want to highlight, which is particularly, one is the rebuilding of Parliament of South Africa. You know that in 2022, on the 2nd of January, the Parliament banned, and we came in as a Dbsa to then come and say, we as a trusted partner would assist government, and that's why I always say we contracted with the country than having to contract with them, because everybody really would want to then see the Parliament functioning. So that Parliament is rocking now. The construction is on. And then we're poised to then be in a position to say by 2027, we would want to see the State of the National address being dealt in there, delivered in there. And then the other area is the Limpopo Central Hospital. If you go to Limpopo, they don't have any academic hospital. That's why you have the University of Limpopo having to, have to utilize other hospitals. So now we inaugurated a very big project there, which is a 4 billion, 5 billion project to really be building a very big hospital, which is basically going to be accommodated to 488 beds, and that is a project that currently is moving very well. And some people will talk about things are over cost. There are just cost overruns. There's no cost overrun in our language where we sit in our delivery. So now we also then are delivering in Siloam. There is a hospital that I just put it, which is called Siloam, right in the dip of Limpopo. And if you look at these 2 combined, you're talking 712 beds added in Limpopo. So you can imagine what impact that is going to make in terms of the total quality of health within the province itself. And again, in both projects, we pride ourselves that we design for impact. Right. Hence, I'm saying, even in the manner that we dealt with the issue of the hospitals, is basically beginning to design these hospitals for the future, that the cutting-edge technology is basically deployed in there. And in Parliament, one of the things that is very critical to note is that if those that has been to Parliament will realize that it has been accommodating about 400 sitting. So now in the design that the Dbsa has basically provided for this country is that we're going to find that the sitting is 1,172. You can imagine the kind of a sitting that we have then created in that particular regard. And in that regard, again, that Parliament we designed in such a manner that we also have to take consideration of the climate change or the climate issues. Again, that's where we're tabling the issue of making sure that, like Cape Town as it is, there are seismic events that may happen, so we designed for that particular kind of a thing. So now we also continue to play a significant role for regional integration, as I said, in the regional space. So we're working very closely in partnership with our SADC member states. And then that's where we really more focus sharply on the issue of water. And that's why we're displaying the Kazungula Water and Sanitation Project. That particularly will benefit about 20,000 people in that border town. And that's one of those projects that also tells you of how the climate resilient infrastructure really works, because then you have a solar panel pumping. So the sustainability thereof becomes quite a critical element of saying water will be pumped throughout, whether there's no electricity, if there is some load shedding, then there'll be some sort of this. So and I'm saying that carefully. Yeah, in that regard. So now, those are some of the things that I think we have done. But as we said, rather just to conclude my part, is then to say, that's why we really say we want to then promote transboundary project and the sharing of resources.
Right.
Because for Kazungula, we're drawing water right from the surface of the Zambezi River and sharing it also in terms of the thing. So now, I think in our approach, we still say, we value even the feedback of our clients, because it's what makes us stronger. Thank you so much.
And so obviously you've also redefined for us SMART, it's smart partnerships, smart and just engagement and access, but also smart builds, buildings that can cool themselves, that can leverage the sun in summer, that can withstand the strong gusty winds, all of those kinds of things, building with that understanding of the Triple P.
Certainly. That's why, we moved from the terminology of strategic partnership to smart partnerships, because we think that's why the CEO was talking about coalition, and because that's really so. And we also, in our institution, building a very strong building information modeling system, because ultimately we want to see that system being the system that the country uses for modeling of infrastructure, that the president can know which project is taking place at a certain point. And I think you hear, at some point to say, we're turning South Africa into a construction site.
Right.
But if you ask, where's the project happening? We may not know exactly where that particular project is.
Yeah.
But when you come to the Dbsa, we'll tell you where it's happening. We can even give you the geospatial location of that particular project as to where it's happening.
You're going to forgive me because the journalist in me can't allow this to go untapped.
Which one?
So you said we are hoping to hear the State of the Nation address in the new parliament in 2027. Gusho wena. So she.
That's why I said we're a powerful organization, not afraid to make a commitment. We've made that commitment to the country and to the nation. And we're saying in our strive, we're pushing that parliament so that the State of the Nation in 2027 takes place within that parliament.
Mina CE, if there's no State of the ovela uthi asiyimi uchweni. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I'd now like to open questions from the audience to our panel, but I'd also like to invite Butumelo Musako, the CE, to join us, and also Zodwa Mbele to join us in this part of the conversation. And as they're making their way through, perhaps you can put up your hands so that I can see where the questions will be coming from. Yes, sir, I see you in the middle. I see a technician with his hand. Okay, microphone in the center. Where else are we going to see a question coming through? Or is there only courage after one person has asked the question, then everybody says, okay, I'm confident enough to do it. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then we really congratulate Dbsa this morning. Then what a stunning performance, and we are proud of Dbsa. And my name is Bafana Dube. I'm the Deputy President of the Black Business Council in the built environment. So my question that I think CEU can do better is the issue of preparation fund. And then for us as Black business, we feel that we might not have the skin in the game of the 50%. If Dbsa gives out 50% of the preparation fund, Black people in this country might not have the skin in the game and putting the other 50%. I'm thinking that CE and your executive, you must be able to come up with a solution around that. To say, as an organization that represents contractors and engineers, we are now starting to encourage our members to start their own project from the beginning to end for the first time in this country. And then we believe that Black people have built the capacity to be able to start project from the beginning to end. But if we are encouraging them to do that, it means that the issue of preparation fund is going to play a critical role in terms of making sure that they have their own project and then they add value to the economy. So the issue of preparation fund of the 50%, I think CE can do better in making sure that you give 100%. You might able maybe ask for the equity into that particular project for you to able to cover your risk in terms of investing that. That's one. And then number two, I see that you are now talking to the issue of your passenger rail. I'm saying South Africa, when you look at Transnet and Dbsa, it's like those are old infrastructure systems. I think maybe somewhere, somehow, government and politicians will start thinking around it. You can't want to compete globally when you are still plugging your infrastructure into the old infrastructure. It's not possible. It means that Dbsa must able to assist government around evidence-based policy formulation by South African government. In terms of looking around the countries, South Africa is part of BRICS, and there are a number of issues now at BRICS level, and different countries at BRICS bringing new technology in terms of how we move goods and how we move people. So, but if we still want to try to invest on the old infrastructure, trying to make it more efficient, I think it's going to be a challenge, CE. I think your executive and Dbsa, we are expecting that as Black business to say you must able to assist this government around evidence-based solution, looking at different countries at BRICS level who are bringing new technology in terms of how they're going to move people and how they're going to move goods. I think we want to see more innovation coming from Dbsa, advising the country around the infrastructure to say, what is it that we can introduce as a new technology in terms of driving our economy? Thank you.
Thank you so much. CE, do you want to respond?
We'll take more questions.
Want to take more questions? Okay, there's a gentleman at the back, right there. Yes.
Good afternoon, Dbsa, Honorable Deputy Minister, Chair and CEO. I'm glad you guys are now probably moving into the taxi industry space, given the fact that this is one sector that has been neglected quite extensively, whilst we continue pouring money into the likes of Gautrain, Prasa and everybody else, and BRT, and we don't have the numbers to show for it. Just a case in point, Prasa last year did 41 million passengers, whilst the minibus taxi industry did 3.8 billion passenger trips annually, which is 15 million passengers daily. And in terms of how we support it, I'm glad the Deputy Minister is here. In terms of how we're supporting it, it's something like 11 cents per trip. Whilst for every trip you take on Gautrain, we are putting about 311 Rand per trip in terms of subsidy. And it's because these people are using unsubsidized transportation, they get to pay up to 50% of their income on transportation. That for me, it's a gross injustice, but I'd like to believe probably from an infrastructure point of view, that is something that we need to do. If you go to Park Station today, the level of investment that was done at almost R1 billion, it looks like an airport. And you step out of that airport and go to the taxi rank that is next to it. It's like you're moving from night to day. And it's sitting on the same Prasa land, that's that very same taxi rank. And I think we had a meeting this morning with National Treasury just to talk in the city of Joburg as part of the presidential working group on the issue of how to fund taxi ranks. There's just no money to fund them. And that infrastructure continues to be neglected. And I'd like to believe that the National Department of Transport and National Treasury, they need to look at the issue of the infrastructure. We have not even started talking about operational subsidy because that's another debate. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, perhaps from this side of the room? Okay. And over here? Or maybe they will come after. Yes, ma'am. And up front, over here, please.
So, good morning. I'm Marie-Hélène Loison, the new regional director for AFD, French Development Agency. So, first of all, congratulations. You were talking about stellar performance, and we can only agree with that. It's quite impressive. I can understand why you're working with so many partners. I was wondering, you were mentioning a few examples of projects in South Africa and elsewhere. I was wondering if you have regional infrastructure projects and what is your strategy to try and do more for regional integration?
Okay. I think those three we can go.
Okay.
I think we can begin answering that
Was-
first round
yeah.
of three.
Oh, my mic is on actually.
Okay,
Oh,
it's on.
goodness.
Yes,
Yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
looking for a microphone. Need to catch up. Okay, I think the first question was around how we support Black entrepreneurs in the built environment. I think when one looks at what we offer from a product perspective, it's project preparation facilities, debt facilities, equity facilities, and in certain instances, grant funding. Now, when you look at these products that we offer, they are well positioned to actually address the gaps that you are alluding to. But it is also critical for us that when you support a project, it's not somebody coming, with an idea and just saying, "Oh, I've got this thing." There must always be that demonstration of skin in the game, whether it's in the form of sweat capital that actually a person has put, into a specific project. Now, yes, you are right. We need to do more, and that's why with the implementation of our operating model and the oversight from our board, we're actually looking to increase the number of even lower value transactions by actually allocating capacity, by also allocating technical assistance to those smaller type infrastructure projects. So this is definitely on the cards, and we'll be looking to providing feedback on that. And when it comes to, innovation is part of our values as an institution, and I think as a country we have made a lot of progress through Operation Vulindlela and the reforms that are being implemented in the energy space, in the transport space, and those suggestions that you have around how to strengthen, the system through technology is taken into consideration. But we're also of the view that you cannot neglect what is already there. You have to build on what is already there and expand. And that's why within our value chain, we talk about infrastructure maintenance. We have, I think we probably have the biggest rail network and road network on this continent as a country. So it's a strong base for us to work from together. Now let's talk a little bit about the taxi industry. When we started this work, because when it comes to infrastructure, it's about accessibility and affordability, affordable transport, affordable affordable energy. What is in the best interest of the South African citizen? And when we started this program and this pilot, because it's currently a pilot, to then say how can we look at those models around how to support the industry, doing the data analysis around efficiencies, cost of operation, scheduling, cashless systems. So it was a big, it was a vision that, it's an initiative that we started working with the World Bank. And the ultimate outcome is how do we make it affordable, which is what you are mentioning. It is at the early, stages of the pilot where we've actually managed to create an entity with the operating licenses, and then doing the pilot. Once we have the data and the feedback, then we'll see where we take it from there. But the taxi industry is a very important industry in our country. When I heard the numbers that, it's 15 million people, I know how critical it is, having to have, traveled in a taxi for almost half of my life. So it is a very, very critical industry, and I do agree with you that we definitely need to prioritize. I think someone can take the question on regional integration.
I think, let me expand on the one on project prep.
Yes.
And I'll cover the one on regional integration. Bafana, you're absolutely right. I think project preparation is quite key, especially for South African sponsors, more so the Black sponsors, to come in early in the transactions. And for that matter, to come in at cost as well, instead of at a premium when you are coming in at a late stage. So we are in the process of remodeling our project preparation offering, because we realize it's quite key, not only to unlock these infrastructure projects that are not fully prepared to a bankable feasibility stage, but it's also quite important for us to ensure that our project sponsors that are local do take up ownership in these projects. Because if you come in early, as I said, you come in at cost, you are able to earn a development premium, and what you can then do is to churn that development premium and convert it into equity at financial close. So it assists you in that regard. And for that matter, I think we must engage further in terms of what we can do. We actually engaged with the BBC not too long ago with some of my colleagues here on the transmission, on the independent transmission program, so that we take advantage of that opportunity, which is about 440 billion over the next 10 years. So how do we ensure that our project sponsors locally take advantage of that opportunity? And we are working on a number of products to ensure that they do take advantage of those opportunities. Then when it comes to regional integration, for sure, we are involved in a lot of regional integration related projects, such as, for example, the Lobito Rail Corridor project, where we financed it. We've approved funding alongside the US Dbsa. As you know, it's quite an important corridor in terms of unlocking, that infrastructure, that node in terms of the landlocked countries, Zambia and DRC, accessing global markets, and also to ensure that we facilitate trade, especially around critical minerals. So we are in a lot of those types of regional integration related projects. And right now we are also working on a regional integration, a regional transmission fund to unlock transmission in the Southern African region alongside the South African Power Pool, and also, of course, to facilitate energy trading, cross-border energy trading in the region.
Maybe to supplement on the regional integration question as well. We have the SADC Secretariat as a key partner of the bank, wherein we've got various projects. I mean, some of it I spoke earlier on about that is now coming onto stream. The refurbishment of the ports of entry, which comprises, I think it's about 6 of those, Lesotho, Botswana, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. So that's one of the key projects that has come out of that relationship that we have with it. And Chweni spoke to the water project. We still have others that are also underway. For example, supply of water from Lesotho through South Africa into Botswana. So we do have various programs. So the regional integration is one of the strategic initiatives of the bank. So it is at the core of what we do in that regard. Perhaps through, whilst I'm on the floor, just to talk to again on the issue that has been raised on the rail side of things. The approach that we talk to the rail PSP embedded in that is private sector participation in that regard, because the state acknowledges that it does not have all the answers, as it were. So part of opening up to the private sector is to allow for innovation, is to allow for private sector to bring in the technologies that may be there. Having said so, as the CE has indicated, we have infrastructure. Yes, it may be dated, maybe largely also to the issue around maintenance and so forth, but it gives us a base to start working on today, as it were. I think it will be remiss of us to not leverage of the infrastructure that we have to date, and in that regard. But we are certainly open to advise and propositions for the new technologies, as it were. Let me pause there. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, maybe just from our side, just a tinge of information around, especially when it comes to the issue of regional integration. As I said before, we are a partner with the SADC Secretariat, SADC member states. So the SADC Water Fund sit within the Dbsa, and we have a very healthy pipeline there currently in motion, which will put about 11 projects, a combined value of 51 billion rand. And that's basically, the way we really are looking at, just amplifying and elevating, regional impact. But again, pushing the issue around transboundary. Africa is so endowed with all of these river basins. So we are saying that the good thing is that water doesn't need, if you have to take water from Congo, you don't necessarily need a pipeline. There is tributaries and all of those particular, it will reach you. It's just a question of how we really harness that. So we're pushing for those transboundary, but also just beginning to ensure that there is also that relationship that exists between the member countries, because one thing for sure, water this side might be charged in the Mozambican currency. This side is South African currency. This side is Zimbabwean dollars, and so on. So those are the kind of issues that obviously from the SADC perspective gets to be resolved to then deal with that. But our really so focused around dealing with the whole regional integration and reducing the, increasing the access to water in the continent.
All right, we can take a final round of questions. Do I see any hands? I just do need a little bit of help from the technicians because I'm not sure my eyes, if they're deceiving me. I need those glasses that Zodwa had. Okay, so no questions going. Gone. Okay. I have a question, and I think it's a question for each of you along the same lines, which is really and truly, we're talking here about development impact, we're talking about sustainability, and we're also talking about future preparing, right? Economies of the future, jobs of the future, markets of the future. So in terms of your portfolio, Zodwa, I mean, really stellar results. And even, I was made to understand that in terms of cost to income ratio, it's around 22%. It's one of the better ratios we've seen, even if we were looking at commercial banks. So that runway is there. Sustainability and what you're going to do to ensure that there's fiscal sustainability and impact.
So thanks for that question, Lerato. You know, I think earlier on the CEO was talking about our growth ambitions. As you want to grow, you'd have to invest. And as you invest, but you have to have your guardrails. So you should not let down those guardrails regardless. So in our case, when I spoke about that ratio increasing in a measured way so that it sustains the growth that we want to achieve. And growth, it means we want to write more book, basically. If we want to triple our book, it means you have to invest in the resources as in human beings, but also the resources, enabling resources, that digital technology platforms, where a municipality in a remote area does not need to phone anyone, but they can go into our digital platform and make application. And it should be so advanced that even those applications that can be made can also unlock the grant funding integrated into what the requirements are from the National Treasury point of view. So that's what we were talking about, that you still need to invest in that process. We have started the process. There's quite a lot that is happening in the background, the business processes to support our growth trajectory. So we'll definitely still have to maintain it, sustain it. And I mean, it's our language. We talk sustainability so that we can continue to have more intervention all the time. And reckless, and not to be reckless with our lending. We still need to make sure that thresholds with the non-performing loans and the credit provisions are within our target ratios as well.
Fantastic. Okay. Shweni Rampele, sustainability for you in terms of IDD infrastructure delivery.
Yeah, I think for us, simple. I mean, it's again integrating in our design, because these things you design them, and we talk infrastructure that we design. We need to design in such a manner that you embed sustainability in a sense that this becomes infrastructure that can serve for kind of indefinite years. And then again, when we talk on sustainability, it's also then making sure that this infrastructure that we build is able to enable us to deal with the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, that we need to embed all of those sort of things, understanding where we come from, in ensuring that the kind of interventions we make, they are quite sustainable. But again, sustainability, defining it from a point of ensuring that the kind of the capacity that we have, it's just fit for purpose, and we continuously improve to ensure that it becomes fit for purpose, to ensure that our initiatives are sustainable. But the last thing is mainly the community centered type of project delivery, because we're faced with the construction mafias and all of that. And so you need to ensure that whatever the efforts you are making are really ensuring that you also sustain the momentum in that respect. Thank you so much.
Mphomokwele, you're the GE of transacting and obviously and coverage as well. So when we talk developmental impact and sustainability in this large footprint that you have across different markets, what does it mean to you, and what are you doing to ensure that there is?
Yeah. So thank you, Lerato, for that question. So I think we've done well. The results show that we've done well. But what we are doing is we are looking forward into the future in terms of accelerating infrastructure delivery on the continent on our side. So we've put together our strategy, our 10-year strategy, the decadal strategy that the various speakers spoke about earlier on today, to say, how do we accelerate this delivery of infrastructure on the continent, because more can of course be done. There's that infrastructure finance gap that you spoke about 170 billion per annum. So we're trying to close that gap as much as possible. So we are eyeing a number of infrastructure opportunities. There is no shortage of pipeline in the market. It's just that this pipeline has to be prepared. That's what we said. And we are looking at growth prospects in transmission, and I spoke about transmission in South Africa, and as well as transmission across the entire continent, to ensure that we are connected, we are able to trade. If Angola is sitting on surplus energy, can they not sell that electricity to South Africa to avert, let's say, load shedding? So we are working on that on our side. Lebu spoke about the rail PSP program. It's about 330 billion and plus. Once he's prepared, that program, it comes to our side. We then bank it, we take it all the way to the end. So we are eyeing a number of opportunities. There's green hydrogen as well, where we've already provided project preparation funding on our side. We are planning for the future in the next 5 years. We are hoping for those large-scale green hydrogen projects to close as well.
Lebogang, that's a great segue for you because you're the early level kind of investor. You see what others maybe fail to see, right? And that's really what a multilateral development bank is meant to do: get in at the early stage and stay the course even before it's commercial. So for you, sustainability and social impact and project preparation.
Certainly. I think we spoke about various infrastructure programs that we're looking into. We've mentioned them, the rail, we spoke at length about it. Some in the pipeline, we're looking at health, that we're looking to develop in discussions around that. And more so, the water partnerships, we know that we've got challenges with our water infrastructure in that regard. So that plays a critical role. It's very high in our agenda. And we've done a lot of work, for example, in the student housing. We now need to see those projects coming to stream. We've unlocked funding. I spoke earlier on about the work that we've done with infrastructure fund. There's a lot of money that has been unlocked through the BFI, so we are now needing to get into a point where these projects and programs are implemented, as it were. So in the shorter term is to focus in the implementation. That's one. The second element, which I think for us is quite strategic, is the issue around bringing the hard infrastructure together with the social investment side of it. We spoke earlier on, for an example, the C spoke about the DLabs, also to bring in the climate and environmental. So the trio for us, that convergence is quite critical for us as we develop these programs going forward. So it's not one or the other. We see them as intertwined, and that convergence, that's one of the critical things from a strategic point of view that we will be working and focusing on. So in all of the programs that we will be working in, we will always ask ourselves, what's the social element of it to ensure that we can create jobs, we can ensure that we can create economic opportunities in a sustainable way, and how do we ensure that we bring in, including in things such as steel, how do we ensure that we bring in green steel, as it were, industrialization, and hence Mpho spoke about it earlier on. When we engage with the BBC, we're looking through the value chain to ensure that there is participation, and we continue to reindustrialize our country and reindustrialize our region. Thank you.
Right. See, I know you're going to give us an outlook, closing remarks, but perhaps maybe for you it's sustainability and developmental impact in the context of all these headwinds, whether we're looking at geopolitics or we're looking at, debt for many sovereigns on the continent, or just the pressure of municipalities to perform.
Lerato, there's the geopolitical tensions that you've mentioned. There's all of these challenges, but you see, what remains is the need. And because all of those do not take away the need for access to infrastructure, the need for affordable services. So in spite of all of those challenges, it is our role as a development finance institution to use the instruments that we have, the systems, the products that we have, the technology that we have, the processes that we have, the people that we have, that in spite of the headwinds, in spite of the storms, because you don't know, you will wake up and you'll hear this has changed and that has changed, that we keep on this path of infrastructure development and providing access. Yes, there are challenges, but I can tell you, it is not impossible.
All right. The executive team of the DBSA.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys.
Well,
Earlier on, we heard about the incredible support that it has been given to this organization over 42 years, actually, of its existence by the sovereign shareholder. And now we're going to meet the representative, but I'd like to invite the interim chair, Ms. Martie Janse van Rensburg, to introduce to us our keynote address.
Thank you very much, Lerato. I now have the pleasure to introduce our Deputy Minister of Finance, Dr. David Masondo. He's the chairperson of the Public Investment Corporation with a PhD in political economy from the New York University. He is a respected policymaker and academic, known for his work on structural technology, on structural economic reform, public investment, and inclusive growth. Dr. Masondo and our Deputy Minister, it's an honor for us to have you here today. And you were not here earlier. We also thank you for all the support you have given us as a from the shareholder point of view. Thank you.
No, thanks, Marty, for that introduction. And the problem of coming last is you may repeat the things that people have said. And Lerato, when you were asking for the second round of questions, there was silence. It's a sign that people are okay. So they've got all the answers. They've seen the financial and the operational performance of the bank. And I'm between you and lunch and networking. So I'll try to be as brief as possible, but don't believe politicians when they say, I'll be brief. They don't really mean it. They just want to keep your attention, hoping that they are about to finish. In one meeting, two of them actually, they said, in conclusion. And yeah, until it's like they were redoing the speech. But Marty and your board, the DBSA executive management, under the CEO, Boitumelo, DBSA investors, both who are here and online, credit rating agencies, I hope you are watching, that we're doing our best to get the economy growing. You'll have to relook at our sovereign rating in the light of what we've been doing as a country. Whilst other people believe that terrible things are happening in South Africa, there are great things happening in South Africa, including the results we're celebrating today. The National Treasury team and the entire DBSA team, because these results are as a result of the work that you do. Let me apologize for the minister. He misses you a lot. As a former chair of the bank, he misses the bank a lot. And unfortunately, he had to go to cabinet. That's why he couldn't come. So it's not because, as he always does, if there are things that he doesn't like doing, he says one of the deputies must do it. But this one, it's something that he really, really wanted to do. So he's in cabinet, as I said, so he can't be with us to celebrate the strong results of the DBSA. I mean, which basically say DBSA is a good company. If you look at the financial performance and the operational performance. But we also here celebrating the resilience of South Africa. And the last two speakers here, that's Lerato and the CEO, were talking about the difficult moment in which the world finds itself in, global uncertainty, economic headwinds are very strong. But despite that, Dbsa stands firm, building stronger foundation for more inclusive economic growth. And I assume that speakers before me would have said a lot about the importance of infrastructure in economic growth. But let me say the obvious, that infrastructure does not only contribute to fix capital formation, but it also reduces the cost of doing business, but also of living. Spere Perrier was talking about student accommodation. It helps us to deal with this. Fees must fall if students have accommodation and the costs are lower. We will not have to pay a lot of money for student accommodation. I think you're also talking about PRASA, energy. So in addition to reducing the cost of doing business in South Africa, infrastructure is critical for reducing the cost of living in South Africa. And the provision of reliable and affordable and provision of freight logistics, of water, of telecommunication. As I said, it does reduce the production costs and thus making us very competitive in South Africa, because if your production costs are low, it means that you are competitive compared to other jurisdictions. I mean, South Africa, we used to compete on the basis of cheap electricity in this country. We industrialized at the back of cheap electricity, freight logistics. We became competitive, and therefore that simply demonstrates that for us to maintain our competitiveness in the world, it's important for us to focus on infrastructure. We're not the only one who are saying investment come our way. There are other jurisdictions that are looking for this investment, which is quite critical for economic growth. So Dbsa, as an imported supplier of capital, you contribute a lot to infrastructure demands, meeting the infrastructure demand of our country. And I see you have provided support worth of 91 billion in the 2024-2025 financial year. But also as a sovereign, we do try to make our contribution to contribute towards economic growth. One of our pillars for economic growth, in addition to infrastructure, structural reforms, is macroeconomic stability. Stability of prices, stability of the exchange rate. If you've got low and stable inflation, it means that you're more likely to have low interest rate. Interest rate is basically the price of money, is the price of capital. And if money is cheap for households, if money is cheap for firms, if money is cheap for government, we raise money ourselves from the market, and money has not been very cheap for us. We pay 420 billion on debt service costs per year. And we know high risk, high interest rates. The cost of capital become high if people believe that the prospects or your ability or capacity to service that debt is low. So low interest rate is also in the interest of DBSA itself, because you raise money from other jurisdictions. And if they doubt that this sovereign called South Africa's capacity to service its debt, it does impact on all of us operating in South Africa. So it is in your interest that we maintain low and stable inflation, which is a necessary condition for us to reduce the cost of capital, but also to protect the value of our money. So it is also very important in the context of the macro side that we need to have a stable exchange rate, because surely as DBSA, as I was going through your results, you do have foreign denominated liabilities that require stable exchange rate. Because if your exchange rate is not stable, it's going to be, for the CFO and the treasury, it's going to be very, very difficult to manage your own treasury there. Debt sustainability, making sure that our debt is maintained at a sustainable level, is one of the key things that we do at a macro level to contribute towards the making sure that the cost of capital, not just of infrastructure, is affordable for us to get our economy growing. As other speakers have said, through Operation Vulindlela, we've opened up a number of network industries, telecommunications, energy. It's no longer Eskom that is the only player insofar as energy generation. We've opened up the freight logistics to enable third-party access into the freight rail, so that it's not one company that dominates that industry, because we know if you've got one monopoly, the monopoly gives you the price, and that creates problems insofar as the cost of doing business in our country. So there's a number of reforms, including in water, that we've undertaken to increase our capacity to increase the water supply for our economy. Having opened up many of these industries, we do need to have capital to move in, because for both the private sector and the public sector, on the public sector side, the fiscus is constrained in terms of its ability to invest more in infrastructure. I'm told that we need about 4 trillion rand by 2035 if we are to meet our infrastructure needs. So there's a serious finance gap insofar as the infrastructure is concerned. And I'm sure in your earlier conversations, many of you have said, no, money is not a problem. The problem is a pipeline. Give us the pipeline where money, fagi pipeline uzobona imali. So, and indeed, we have deep capital markets in South Africa, and the world as well is looking to getting capital in South Africa. So the point is, what do we do to get money to flow into this infrastructure program? And I'm glad that the DBSA, you do have a project preparation unit that helps us, or which should be helping us as a sovereign, hopefully, to generate this bankable pipeline, not only for South Africa, I want to argue, but also for the continent, of course, working with other jurisdictions on the continent. I say so because one of our priorities as South Africa G20 presidency, because you remember, so the G20 is under our presidency, and the working group on infrastructure is meant to produce toolkits to enable different sovereigns to produce bankable projects. And we do think that the Dbsa, and they've been participating in these processes of the G20 to help us to enhance the production of bankable pipeline projects. Like I said, not only for South Africa, but also for the continent as a whole. I mean, many of you here, you were talking about regional integration. The African continental free trade on its own can't help us to grow, can't be realized without infrastructure. And therefore, we need to work hard on the cross-border infrastructure, which is one of our priorities in the context of the infrastructure G20 working group. And I'm aware that the Dbsa itself is participating in some of the projects that are cross-border infrastructures. The Lubido corridor is one of them. So I think the generation of bankable project, because that's one of the constraints for the supply of capital towards these infrastructure programs. Now, you are in business of generating returns for your investors and reducing risk. You're not running MIG, the Municipal Infrastructure Grant. Kenneth, you're not running that. You used to do that in Treasury, and I'm fully aware that you are now responsible for raising capital in order to invest that capital, and those investors, asset managers, including the multilateral development banks, they want returns. And therefore, you've got to manage the risks. So in a business of enhancing returns for your investors, but also managing risks, managing the possibility that people that you are lending money do give you back that money plus more money. You are in that business. So you've got to manage the risk, and your performance does demonstrate that you are managing the risks very well, because the returns, they look good, and I'm sure the investors are smiling at the performance of your company. So even on those cross-border infrastructure projects, you've got to assess risk properly, you've got to make sure that the returns are good, and the cross-border infrastructure program is not just economic, but it's also political. The founding fathers, the giants on the continent, Kwame and Nkrumah, they dreamt of the United States of Africa. And Kwame was even saying, no, I'm not going to have independence for Ghana until the whole continent is liberated. Because he was aware that once you've got these sovereigns, nation states, regional integration is going to be a challenge. And it seems like it's proven right. I have my small country of 2 million people here. I'm a president there with my currency, with my army. And you need scale, right? If you've got to raise big checks in order to invest, you require scale insofar as the projects are concerned. So the cross-border infrastructure for me it is not just an economic issue, but it's also a political issue on how we integrate the continent politically. Yes, we may not achieve the dreams that people like Kwame Nkrumah had, that we have the United States of Africa with one army. It's not a dream that even my generation and my kids' generation will realize, but these are the dreams that we must always keep on the agenda. Now, I just want to talk briefly about what we are doing to deal with the risks. And I think Dbsa itself, and I'm talking to not only to Dbsa, but also to other investors who are listening. So having said that money is not a problem, we need, what do we have to do to get money to flow into infrastructure? In my view, we need to set the right incentives for that capital to move to those infrastructure projects. And reducing the risks associated with those infrastructure projects, it's critical. And as Treasury, working with the World Bank and other multilateral institutions, we are working on a credit guarantee vehicle, which is aimed at de-risking infrastructure project or investment. Basically, this, it's, I mean, I think it was, is it Mpo, who was saying we need about 400 and something billion for the transmission infrastructure as a consequence of the reforms that we've undertaken, in which we said we need to allow the private sector to get in and generate energy. And indeed, there's been massive investment in renewables in places like the Northern Cape. Unfortunately, they don't have the transmission infrastructure to get the energy into our grid. And for that transmission infrastructure, 14,000 kilometer infrastructure requires 400 billion rand. And like I said, both the sovereign balance sheet and the SOEs balance sheet, Niele said they are screwed, but they are challenged. Let me just say they are seriously challenged, but some of them are turning around like, and I'm sure ESCOM, there will be, I don't want to take their thunder. They will also be, looks like they will be announcing good results. There's been a lot of turnarounds in that regard. And we said, yes, in the past, as a sovereign, we will take the risk of some of the SOEs that are investing in or enabling the private sector to invest in some of their industries like ESCOM, so far as the renewables are concerned. We took that risk as part of the, and we made it the contingent liability of the state. And through this credit guarantee scheme, we said, no, we are not taking that contingent liability into the sovereign balance sheet. It has to be, for lack of better word, privatized. So we are establishing an insurance company, privately owned. It's not another SOE. It's not all SOEs that are doing bad, by the way. So let's not also bash. This is one of the SOEs that is doing very well. And many of them are turning around, as I said. So this credit guarantee scheme is meant to de-risk the investments that are going to go into, firstly, into the transmission infrastructure. We're starting there with a few kilometers that ESCOM, it's undertaking. Capital required is 10 billion, and we are seeking different investors to invest into this credit guarantee vehicle. As a state, we will put 2 billion as equity into it, and other multilateral development finance institutions are also willing to put money, depending on their risk appetite. Some will put senior debt, junior debt, equity, and of course, they expect returns. They are not putting money for nothing. And over time, if this credit guarantee scheme is proven to be viable, of course, there will be certain lessons that we will learn in our context. It will not be the first of its kind. There are a number of jurisdictions that have crowded in the private sector capital into infrastructure using instruments such as the credit guarantee scheme. And if it is successful, we want to utilize it also for other infrastructure programs, including the freight, logistics, telecommunication, and so on and so on. So I'm illustrating this to demonstrate that we are serious about getting the private sector investment into public infrastructure, and there are different instruments that we are undertaking. In addition to the conversation that we are having, the G20, in our G20 presidency, but we are also putting this into practice. The technical team in National Treasury has advised me that July 2026, this credit guarantee scheme will be operational. So I'm de-risking any possible accountability that, no, DM, you said in 2026 July, this thing will be operational. I am advised that it will be operational in July 2026. I have no doubt this team has delivered. National Treasury team, Brown will know better than I do, always delivered on time and on budget. So I'm definitely certain that in July, this vehicle will be operational, but starting on a small scale, insofar as a few projects on transmission that are going to be undertaking. It's not guaranteeing the 400 billion that is basically required. It's for the limited amount based on the project plans that ESCOM has insofar as this is concerned. Like I said, it's just to illustrate that it's not just talk, it's also accompanied by action. And there are also a couple of reforms that we're undertaking in metros, particularly on trading services, energy, waste, and water. So what happens in municipality, and the DBSA team will know better than I do, the revenue that municipalities, through those services that they are selling to us as residents, the revenue that they generate is not ring-fenced to be reinvested back into those services. It gets into a big pot called a budget, and it gets utilized in a manner that doesn't maintain that infrastructure, and that infrastructure collapses and is not able to generate more money to be maintained. The citizens get angry and they vote us out. But as they vote us out, they get a coalition, it's just chaos. You don't get better results. So it's a problem. So we said the little contribution that we can make as Treasury, because at the end of the day, we must be interested in these cities, because these are important engines for economic growth. If we get cities right, our GDP, our inclusive economy is more likely to happen. So there's a couple of reforms that we're undertaking, and the team is working on different models on these trading services, on whether they should be maintained as business units as they are, and if they are, how do you ring-fence the money that they generate from, the revenue that they generate from selling those services? They need to have their own, so if it's, or you need to have them as trading services. And if they are trading services, ring-fence their money, but also make sure that they've got their own financial statements and announce results. And as they announce results, they can also go out in the market and borrow money to invest in that infrastructure or you can outsource the functions. So there's different models that we're basically thinking about in the context of the metros. And we're looking forward to the Dbsa to look at those issues. I don't want to talk about the shareholder compact. This is not the right platform to talk about it now. But those are some of the issues that we're looking at on the role that we think that you should play. We're very happy as a shareholder that in addition to the commendable financial performance, strong balance sheet, good financial returns, but you are making an impact on the lives of ordinary people. Jobs are being created, being supported, SMMEs are being shown. And I also see that you are, I nearly said in the August month, but your impact insofar as women is concerned, it's commendable, and I'm certain that it's not only because you've got women, but you also have men who are committed to the addressing patriarchy and gender inequalities that we see in our society. So thank you to the board chair and the board as a whole, the leadership and every member of the Dbsa team. And as you can see, you have a very happy shareholder because you're gonna get dividends. It's unlike some of the SOEs where you go, say, recapitalization. So you have a very happy shareholder because of your performance. And we're looking forward to the outer years and your contribution in impacting on South Africa positively is not going unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you, Honorable Deputy Minister David Masondo, for commendations, affirmations, and just assurances that the Dbsa has played its part according to its mandate and has the full support of the shareholder. When you began and you said, we sometimes need to celebrate the good news because look at this, good things are happening in South Africa. I was reminded of something on social media, Minister, because sometimes if you just want to laugh, just go on social media. And somebody posted a picture of mogodu with slap chips and tomato sauce and then tagged it, terrible things are happening in South Africa. Those were the terrible things happening in South Africa. So we love to see good things happening in South Africa. As I said, many colleagues, investors, and peers are watching online. We want to thank you for your time as we start to round off today's results presentation. But we also want to acknowledge the media that are here and are going to really televise and broadcast and write about the story of this really successful multilateral development institution that is building Africa's prosperity. So let me just say thank you very much to SABC TV, and we know you've got scheduled interviews. Thank you for your time. Thank you to SABC Radio. Thank you to Business Day TV. Thank you to Business Day newspaper. Thank you to MoneyWeb. Thank you to Engineering News. Thank you to Energize Magazine. Thank you to Boardroom TV, and also online to Business Report, to News 24, to Daily Maverick and Netwerk 24. I was tempted to say Netwerk 24, and I was like, no, man. No, man. Do better. Okay, Netwerk 24, thank you everybody for the support and for being here, and that, you know, every now and again, there's something really wonderful to celebrate and to commentate and to showcase to the country the goings on. So as we say, goodbye. It's not a goodbye without a throw forward, closing remarks, and just an outlook as to what more wonderful, impactful things we can expect from the DBSA. So please can we welcome back Boitumelo Mosako to close us off.
We've made serious commitments today. I have the opportunity today to share with you, everybody has been mentioning the decadal strategy, We as the Development Bank of Southern Africa, with the leadership of our board, we have developed a decadal strategy. It is an ambitious strategy. It is a timely strategy. As the quote says, if your dreams don't scare you, then they're just not worth it. We've put together this strategy from bottom up, from top to bottom, and these are the outcomes of our decadal strategy. An inclusive economic expansion, climate resilient development, thought leadership, and project preparation factory. We are saying we want to continue the journey of reducing poverty, creating employment, and narrowing inequality. Capable and strengthened municipalities through our integrated municipal approach. In our decadal strategy, we are restoring local government as the engine of service delivery. Through our value chain, we will be supporting to strengthen municipalities, turning rural economies into economic hubs. It is estimated that by 2050, most Africans will be living in urban areas. There is a necessity for us to ensure that we strengthen the cities that we currently have. We create new cities, and we turn urban ones into vibrant economies. Just Transition Advanced, moving from a carbon-intensive economy to a sustainable low-carbon economy in a socially inclusive and equitable way. The just transition, as Michael, one of our executives, says, it's just opportunities. It's time for opportunities to take advantage of green technologies to generate energy in our continent, to provide access to more than 600 million Africans. It is an opportunity for us to take advantage of our critical minerals, green economy wave, for South Africa to re-industrialize, for the rest of Africa to industrialize. That is the opportunity that is before us. We are enabling it as the DBSA. We've recently had our critical minerals strategy to define how we're going to support the development of critical minerals as an institution. Regional integration and access through key sectors facilitated. It is very clear the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement will not happen without infrastructure. Infrastructure is a key enabler to the implementation and the success of the Africa Free Trade Area. Financial sustainability. Doing all of this in a financially sustainable manner. Mobilizing capital, having the right risk frameworks to ensure that we drive this growth that we aspire to. When it comes to mobilizing capital, you see, Africa needs investment. The infrastructure gap is big. We need to mobilize African capital for African investments. I know that the institutions that are here represented, there is no transaction that we can all collaborate to fund across this continent. So the capacity is there. The CFO mentioned the level of our cost-to-income ratio. You know, every time I think of cost-to-income ratio, I think of the chairman of my audit committee, Mr. Bongani Ngwababa, to say, Bitumelo, this cost-to-income ratio, we want to see money working at Dbsa. We want to see the development impact coming through. And that's why when we talk about the project preparation factory, that's where we're going to be putting investments in our technical services to support, as the gentleman said earlier, you know, entities that require the project preparation support. We want to do it in a way that we will not have to go to our shareholder. If we go, we're going to say, can we, you know, we in a way that we don't have to go to our shareholder. The Dbsa has managed to source funds from all over the world. And you know, one flagship transaction that we did was with an American asset manager for 3 billion rand. We did it in our own local currency. So it is possible. Yes, we're navigating issues around the cost of capital. Yes, we're navigating issues around fiscal constraints. There might be fiscal constraints on our continent, but there are strong institutions on our continent. There might be fiscal constraints on our continent, but there is private sector on our continent. And we believe with the strength of our institutions, with the strong private sector, we have what it takes. Sound governance and operational excellence. Our chairman touched on that earlier. I always say governance attracts money. This will be a key enabler for where we are going. Maintaining our high standards of governance, having the right processes and systems in place, and continuing with our unqualified audit opinions. Fit-for-purpose organization. All of this cannot be done without a fit-for-purpose organization. We are at the last stage of implementing our operating model that we have developed to respond to our decadal strategy, to say, how do we need to operate as an institution? How do we need to be structured as an institution? We are at the final stages of implementing that. Where is all of this going? Our decadal strategy as the Dbsa is looking at growing our balance sheet to 300 billion and having and facilitating infrastructure to the value of 1.5 trillion. And that is the big aspiration that we have as an institution. Lastly, I want to thank everyone who has made this possible. Our program director, Ms. Lerato Mbele, thank you. Our technical teams, the strategy team, the marketing team, Bongi, thank you. Thank you for all you have done to make this possible. The shareholder is here now. I had an opportunity to thank the shareholder earlier on, but the minister, thank you for the support that the National Treasury provides us to the team within the National Treasury, Duncan, send our regards to Duncan, to the ALM teams, to the IGR teams, all the teams for the support that they have provided us. To our investors, I cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you for continuing to support the Development Bank of Southern Africa. To our board, thank you for consistently holding us to account. And lastly, to Team DBSA, to those who are in the room, can you please stand? You've met some of our executive team members earlier on today. We have Michael Hillary, who runs our treasury division, who is here. Our CRO is here. Mpho Mokwele, Zeph, our chief economist, Batobile, I call her the secretary general, who's also here. Our various teams. And I know there's some of you who are watching at the bank. And I want you to remember this. It's a very, 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 it's a famous quote. But every time I think of you, I'm only going to take a certain portion of it. It says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points how the strong stumbles, or where the doer or deeds could have been done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. Team DBSA, the advantage of the DBSA. I thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my last words to all of us. Africa is at an inflection point. Yes, there are headwinds. Yes, the geopolitical tensions. But it does not take away from the need of our prosperity. The national anthem of South Africa starts with the words, Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, a demonstration of our Ubuntu as a nation. I end with this. Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, maluphakanyiswe ipondo lwayo. Lord, bless Africa. May her glory be lifted high, bending the arc towards shared prosperity, building Africa's prosperity, the Development Bank of Southern Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much to the CE of the DBSA, Boitumelo Mosako. And that's where we leave it for today's splendid results presentation and also an overview of the strategic role of the DBSA in South Africa and in the rest of the African continent. I think those were great words to leave it at. The DBSA is in the arena, and the arena is that of building Africa's prosperity. If that's your goal, they are there. If that's where you want to play, you'll find them there. If you want to collaborate, they're the ones to collaborate with. We're going to now leave the room and ushers will direct us to lunch. We do invite you to just have a small meal with us, network, meet some of the executive members of the team, meet each other as well. And then those who've been scheduled to conduct media interviews, stay in the room and the media team will direct you as to where to go for each interview. Besides that, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Enjoy your day.